everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. Today we are talking all about chipped teeth.
Chipped teeth.
So what causes them?
Uh-huh.
How to spot them?
Yeah.
What to do about them?
Right.
Whether you're, prepping for a dentist appointment or just curious about dental health or you've got a chip you're kind of wondering about,
Yeah.
this one's for you.
It's fascinating how often we just kind of take our teeth for granted.
Yeah.
Until something goes wrong.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's like front and center.
That's so true.
Our
sources actually lay out this surprising range of culprits.
Yeah.
Of course, there's, biting down on hard foods.
Yeah.
Ice is a big offender.
Oh, ice is terrible for your teeth.
I'll admit I'm guilty of that. But also, hard candy nuts, even crunchy bread.
Really, anything that's
Yeah.
harder than your teeth should be avoided.
Right.
And it's really about the cumulative effect.
Uh-huh.
Like you think your teeth are so strong.
Yeah.
And they are.
They are.
To a point.
Right.
But it's really like those everyday stresses plus habits.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you chew unevenly or if you use your teeth as tools.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
We've all been there.
Yeah. Right.
It creates tiny weaknesses over time.
And let's not forget teeth grinding, which is something I've always wondered about.
Yeah.
Can that really lead to chips, even if you don't realize you're doing it?
Absolutely. That constant clenching and grinding.
Yeah.
It puts so much force on your teeth, especially at night when you're not aware of it.
Right.
And so you just wear down that enamel.
Right.
And then they become much more susceptible to chipping.
Okay, so we've got those kind of internal culprits.
Yeah.
What about those external forces? Thinking falls, sports injuries.
Sure.
Those things we hope never happen, but definitely can do some damage.
And that's often what brings people in for emergency dental care.
Right.
Is when they've had some kind of sudden impact to the face.
Yeah.
A hard fall, a collision during sports, even something as simple as bumping your mouth on a cabinet door. It can all lead to a chipped tooth.
Ouch. I can practically feel that just thinking about it.
Yeah.
So we know what causes them, but how would you tell if you have a chipped tooth, especially if it's not super obvious?
Well, sometimes it's as simple as running your tongue over the tooth.
Uh-huh.
And feeling a jagged edge.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But other times, the signs are a lot more subtle.
Okay.
Like sensitivity
to
hot or cold foods.
Right.
Have you ever noticed like a sharp pain?
Yeah.
When you're biting down a certain way?
You know what? Now that you mention it, I think I have experienced something like that before, but I just assumed it was a weird thing with that particular tooth.
It very well could be. But
okay.
That sensitivity, especially if it's new.
Yeah.
Or if it's getting worse, that's definitely a red flag.
Right.
And it can indicate that there's a crack that's extending deeper into the tooth, potentially exposing the nerve.
Oh, okay.
So
sensitivity isn't something to just ignore.
No.
Makes sense.
Not at all.
Now, I know there are some kind of DIY temporary fixes out there.
Oh, yeah.
Like dental wax over-the-counter filling material.
Uh-huh.
Is that ever a good idea?
Well, I've seen some pretty interesting attempts at DIY dentistry in my time.
I bet you have. Yeah.
While dental wax can be helpful to smooth out a jagged edge, protect your tongue or your cheek.
Yeah.
It's really just a stopgap measure.
Right, and our sources emphasize the choking hazard with those DIY materials. So we're definitely not advocating for self-treatment here.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But it's understandable that people want to find relief.
Right.
Especially if they're experiencing pain or discomfort.
Right.
And that's why it's so important to see a dentist as soon as possible for a proper diagnosis and treatment plan.
Okay, so what are the main professional treatments for chipped teeth?
Okay.
I know fillings are common.
Yeah, fillings are common.
But what about more serious damage?
So you're right. Fillings are kind of the go-to solution for smaller chips. They're quick. They're relatively painless. They can be done in a single visit.
Right.
But for larger chips or those that involve a significant portion of the tooth, a crown is usually the best option.
So fillings for minor chips, crowns for the heavy hitters.
Yeah.
But what exactly are these treatments and how do they work?
So with a filling, the dentist first roughens the surface of the tooth.
Okay.
And that's really key because it creates microscopic pores that allow the bonding agent to really clip onto the tooth structure.
Oh, so it's like creating this super strong foundation.
Exactly.
For the filling.
Huh. I never knew that.
Yeah. And then they apply a bonding agent followed by a composite resin.
Okay.
Which is a tooth-colored material that can be molded to the shape of the chipped area. They harden it with a special light, polish it up, and you're good to go. And what about crowns?
Those seem a bit more involved.
Crowns are definitely a multi-step process, typically requiring 2 separate appointments.
Okay.
but they provide incredible strength and protection for a damaged tooth.
Wow. It's like giving your tooth its own custom-made suit of armor.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me more about the crown process.
Okay.
What happens during those 2 appointments?
So during the first visit,
Uh-huh.
the dentist prepares the tooth
Okay.
by removing any damaged portions and shaping it to fit the crown.
Got it.
So think of it as creating a perfectly tailored foundation
Right.
for the crown to sit on.
Okay, but then do you just walk around with like a gap in your teeth
No.
for a few weeks
No.
until the permanent crown is ready?
Not at all.
Okay.
They fit you with a temporary crown
Oh, okay.
to protect the prepared tooth while you wait.
Okay, so like a placeholder.
Yeah, it's a placeholder.
Until the real deal arrives.
Yeah, until the real deal arrives.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
So the temporary crown kind of holds the fort.
It does.
And then at the second appointment, they swap it out for the permanent one.
That is correct.
What's that like?
So the second visit is all about fitting and cementing the permanent crown.
Okay.
So the dentist will remove that temporary crown.
Yeah.
They'll carefully check the fit of the permanent one and make any necessary adjustments to ensure it's perfect.
Yeah.
And then they cement it in place, and you're good to go with a restored tooth that's both strong and beautiful.
That's fantastic. It sounds like dentistry has really evolved to offer such seamless solutions.
It has, yeah.
But what about the flip side?
Okay.
What happens if you ignore a chipped tooth?
Uh-huh.
Is it really that big of a deal?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's something we definitely need to address.
Yeah.
While it might be tempting to kind of brush off a minor chip,
Right.
especially if it's not causing any pain,
Yeah.
ignoring it can lead to some serious complications down the road.
Oh, okay.
Think of it like this. A small crack in your windshield
Okay.
might seem harmless at first,
Right.
but if you ignore it, it can eventually spread and weaken the entire structure.
Okay, that's a little unsettling.
Yeah.
So a seemingly minor issue can snowball into something much bigger
Exactly.
if left untreated.
Exactly.
What are we talking about here specifically?
So we're talking about the potential for those cracks to worsen,
Right.
leading to the need for more extensive treatments,
Uh-huh.
like root canals
Oh, yeah.
or even extractions.
Right.
And then there's the risk of infection,
Yeah.
which can lead to painful accesses
Right.
and even affect your overall health.
Wow, that sounds pretty serious.
It is.
So even if a tup seems insignificant, it's really important to get it checked out by a dentist just to be on the safe side.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Early detection and treatment are key to preventing those bigger problems down the line.
All right, so we've covered a lot of ground already.
We have.
We've talked about what causes chipped teeth, how to spot them, and the different treatment options available.
Yeah.
But there's still so much more to explore.
There is.
We'll be right back after a quick break to dive deeper into the potential consequences of ignoring a chipped tooth and why it's always better to err on the side of caution.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll see you in a few. Welcome back. Before the break, we were talking about the different materials used for crowns.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing how they can match those to your natural tooth color.
It is.
I remember when crowns were always super obvious, you could spot them a mile away.
Technology has come a long way.
Yeah.
These days, porcelain and zirconian crowns are practically indistinguishable from your natural teeth.
It's quite an art form, actually.
It is.
So tell me more about that. How do they actually achieve that seamless match?
Well,
is it like picking a paint color from a swatch?
it's a little more complex than that.
Okay.
The dentist takes into account a number of factors,
Uh-huh.
like the shape of your surrounding teeth, the translucency of your enamel, even the way light reflects off of your teeth.
Wow. I never realized how much detail goes into creating a natural-looking crown.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's almost like sculpting
It is.
with tooth-colored materials.
Yeah, the lab technicians who create these crowns are true artists.
Yeah.
They use a combination of artistry and technical expertise to craft a restoration that blends seamlessly with your smile.
So it really is like a work of art in your mouth.
It is.
Wow, that's fascinating. It
All
makes
right.
you appreciate the science and artistry that go into modern dentistry.
Yeah.
But let's get back to the crown process itself. We
Okay.
talked about that first appointment
Right.
where the tooth is prepared and impressions are taken.
Uh-huh.
Then you get that temporary crown to wear while you wait.
Right.
What kind of care does that temporary crown need? Can you eat normally with it?
Well, temporary crowns, they're designed to protect the prepared tooth,
Right.
but they are a bit more fragile
Okay.
than permanent crowns, so it's best to be a little cautious with them.
So maybe avoid, chomping down on hard candies.
Yeah.
Or using your teeth to open packages.
Right.
Things like that.
Avoid anything too sticky or chewy.
Yeah.
You could dislodge it.
Right. Okay.
Stick to softer foods to go on the opposite side of your mouth.
Got it.
Just be careful.
Good advice. And what about oral hygiene?
Yeah.
Do you brush and floss around the temporary crown like you normally would?
It's important to maintain good oral hygiene.
Yeah.
Even with a temporary crown.
Okay.
But just be a little more gentle when you're flossing around the crown.
Okay.
Instead of pulling the floss straight up, just kind of slide it out gently so you don't accidentally pull the crown off.
Right. Okay, so a little extra care is needed with the temporary crown.
Yeah, a little extra TLC.
Yeah.
But still keep it clean.
Okay, then finally you go back for that second appointment to get the permanent crown.
Yep.
What can you expect during that visit?
So they'll start by removing the temporary crown.
Okay, and then I guess they just pop the permanent crown right on.
Well, not quite.
Okay.
They carefully check the fit of the permanent crown, making sure it sits perfectly on the prepared tooth, that it aligns properly with your bite.
Right.
Sometimes minor adjustments might be needed.
I imagine it's like getting a new pair of shoes. Sometimes you need to break them in a bit.
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
The dentist wants to make sure that the crown feels comfortable.
Right.
And that it functions properly.
Yeah.
Then once they're satisfied with the fit, they'll cement it permanently in place.
And just like that, you're good to go with a fully restored tooth.
That's right.
It's kind of amazing when you think about it. A tooth that was once chipped or damaged is now back to its former glory.
Pretty cool, huh?
It really is a testament to the advancements in dental technology and the skill of dental professions.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the treatments for chipped teeth.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears now and talk about what happens if you choose to ignore a chip.
Okay.
Especially if it's not causing any pain or discomfort.
Right.
You know, why is that a bad idea?
Well, it might be tempting to think, oh, it's just a small chip, it's not a big deal.
Right.
But ignoring it can actually lead to some pretty serious consequences down the road.
We touched on this a bit earlier, but I think it's worth really diving into the potential risks and complications.
I agree.
What are we talking about here specifically?
Well, one of the most common consequences is that the chip or the crack worsens over time. That seemingly minor imperfection can act as a weak point, making the tooth more susceptible to further damage from everyday chewing and biting forces.
So even if you're being careful, you know, just the normal wear and tear of eating can make the problem worse.
Exactly. And as that crack extends deeper into the tooth, it can eventually reach the pulp, which is that soft inner core of the tooth that contains the nerves and blood vessels.
And that's when things get really painful.
That's when the trouble starts.
Yeah.
When that pulp becomes exposed or infected, it can cause excruciating pain and sensitivity.
Okay, so that's why ignoring a chip can lead to those more expensive and invasive treatments. Like root canals or even extractions.
That's right. Once that pulp is involved, it's a whole different ballgame.
I'm starting to understand why dentists always emphasize the importance of early detection and treatment.
Yeah.
It's like catching a small leak before it turns into a flood.
A great analogy.
Yeah.
Addressing a chip early on that it's still minor is often a much simpler and less invasive process than dealing with a major dental problem down the road.
Makes sense, but let's be honest, sometimes those tiny chips are hard to even notice.
Right.
How can you tell if a chip is something to be concerned about?
Well, some chips are obvious.
Right.
You can see them, you can feel a jagged edge with your tongue.
Yeah.
But others are more subtle.
Okay.
Sensitivity, as we've discussed, is a big red flag.
Right.
If you start experiencing any pain or discomfort when biting down, especially if it's a new sensation, it's worth getting it checked out.
So paying attention to those subtle changes in your teeth can really make a difference.
Absolutely. And there are a few other things to watch out for as well.
Okay. Like what?
If you notice any discoloration around the chipped area, that could be a sign of decay starting to develop.
Interesting. So it's not just about the chip itself, but also about the potential for other problems to arise as a result of that chip.
Exactly. The chip can create a vulnerable spot that's more susceptible to decay infection, further damage.
It's like a domino effect. One small problem can lead to a cascade of other issues if they left unchecked.
I like that.
Yeah. It makes you realize that those tiny chips are not as insignificant as they might seem.
No, they're not.
But what about those chips that are so small you can barely even see them? Do those really warrant a trip to the dentist?
You know, it's always better to err on the side of caution.
Okay.
Even a microscopic chip can create a weak point in the tooth.
Right.
Making it more vulnerable over time.
So no matter how small a professional opinion is always a good idea.
I think so.
Okay.
Think of it as a preventative measure.
Right.
A dentist can assess the chip, even if it's tiny, and determine if any intervention is needed. Sometimes it might just be a matter of monitoring the chip and watching for any changes.
Okay.
Other times a minor procedure might be recommended to smooth out the edges and prevent further damage.
Got it. So even seemingly insignificant chips deserve a professional once-over.
Absolutely. Remember, early detection is key to preventing more serious dental problems down the line.
All right, so we've talked about the importance of early detection and treatment, but I'm curious to know more about the specific treatment options available.
Yeah.
Earlier we touched on fillings and crowns.
Right.
But I'd love to delve a little deeper into those procedures.
Okay.
What can someone actually expect when they go in for a filling or a crown?
Well, with a filling, it's usually a pretty quick and straightforward process.
Okay.
They start by numbing the area around the tooth so you don't feel any pain.
Right.
And then they use a special grill to remove any decayed or damaged portions of the tooth, create a clean surface for the filling material to bond to.
Okay, so they prep the tooth first, kind of like creating a blank canvas for filling.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then once the tooth is prepped, they'll apply a bonding agent, which acts like glue between the tooth and the filling material.
So it's all about creating a really strong connection between the two.
Exactly. And then they'll carefully place the filling material, which is typically a composite resin that's matched to the color of your natural teeth.
I remember you mentioning that there are different types of resins available.
Yeah.
How does the dentist decide which one to use?
Well, the type of resin they choose depends on a number of factors, including the location of the chip, the size of the filling, and the amount of chewing force that area of the mouth experiences.
So they take into account both aesthetics and functionality?
Right. For example, for back teeth that do a lot of heavy chewing.
Right.
They might choose a resin that's known for its strength and durability.
Okay.
For front teeth, where appearance is a primary concern, they might opt for a resin that's more translucent and mimics the natural look of enamel.
So it's like they're customizing the filling to perfectly match your needs.
Exactly. And once they've placed the resin, they'll use a special light to harden it, shape and polish it, so it blends seamlessly with your tooth.
It's amazing how they can make it look so natural.
It is.
So the entire filling process is usually done in one visit?
In most cases, yes, you walk out with a restored tooth.
That's great.
That looks and functions just like the original.
That's good news for anyone with a busy schedule.
It is.
Now let's talk about crowns. I know those are a bit more involved.
They are a bit more involved.
Yeah, can you walk me through that process?
Yeah, so with a crown, it typically requires 2 separate appointments.
Okay.
The first appointment is all about preparing the tooth and taking impressions.
So they start by numbing the area, right?
Yes, just like with a filling, they'll numb the area around the tooth to make sure you're comfortable.
Yeah.
And then they'll remove any decayed or damaged portions of the tooth and shape it to create a solid base for the crown.
It sounds like they're essentially sculpting the tooth to perfectly fit the crown.
Exactly. It's important to create a precise fit so that the crown sits snugly and functions properly.
Okay, so the tooth is prepped. What happens next?
Okay, so once the tooth is prepared, they'll take impressions of your teeth, both the upper and lower arches.
Okay.
And these impressions are used to create a model of your mouth, which is sent to a dental lab where they fabricate your custom crown.
So it's a very personalized process.
It is.
Each crown is custom made to perfectly match.
Exactly.
Your unique bite and the shape and color of your natural teeth?
Yep.
That's pretty impressive.
It is.
But what happens in the meantime? Do you have to walk around with a missing tooth until the permanent crown is ready?
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
They will fit you with a temporary crown, protect the prepared tooth while you wait for the permanent one.
So it's like a placeholder.
It's a placeholder.
Acts as a stand-in until the real deal arrives.
Exactly.
That makes me feel better.
Yeah.
So the temporary crown holds the fort, so to speak.
Yes, it does.
And then at the second appointment, they swap it out for the permanent one.
That is correct.
At your second appointment, the dentist will remove the temporary crown.
Yep.
Carefully check the fit of the permanent one. Make any necessary adjustments.
Right.
Once they're satisfied with the fit,
Yep.
they'll cement the crown permanently in place, and you're all set.
And you're good to go.
That's amazing. It sounds like quite a journey from chipped tooth to fully restored smile.
It is.
It really is a testament to the advancements in dental technology.
It is.
And the skill of dental professionals.
For sure.
We're back, and I don't know about you, but I'm feeling a lot more aware of my own chompers after this whole conversation.
It's amazing how much we take our teeth for granted, isn't it?
I know, right?
Until something goes wrong.
Exactly.
And that's all we can think about.
Before the break, we were talking about the what if of ignoring a chipped tooth.
Right.
And those consequences that, maybe we don't want to think about but should.
Right.
So let's unpack that a bit more.
Okay.
What are those risks if we just kind of take that wait and see approach?
Well, as we've discussed, those cracks can worsen over time.
Right.
And that can lead to needing more expensive treatment.
Yeah.
Like a root canal.
Root canals have a pretty bad reputation.
They do.
Is it really as bad as it sounds?
Root canals have come a long way.
Okay.
Thanks to advances in technology and pain management.
Uh-huh.
So while there might be some discomfort, it's often much less daunting than people imagine.
So it's not necessarily the torture chamber it's often made out to be?
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
And in many cases, it's the best way to save a tooth that's been severely damaged or infected.
And, I guess the alternative to a root canal is extraction, which nobody wants.
Right, that's the last resort.
And extraction means saying goodbye to the tooth altogether.
It does.
So,
and while missing teeth can be replaced, with implants or bridges,
right.
It's always best to keep your natural teeth if possible.
Absolutely. So it's really about being proactive.
Yes.
And taking care of those smaller problems before they escalate into bigger ones.
Exactly. And it all comes back to those regular dental checkups and cleanings.
Right. I was just thinking that those routine visits are so important.
They are so important.
For catching those things early on.
Yes. Early detection is key.
Right.
Because a dentist can spot things that you might not even notice.
Right.
Little tiny cracks, early signs of decay, changes in your gum tissue.
It's like having a professional set of eyes.
It is.
Making sure everything is in tip-top shape.
I like that analogy.
So, I think we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
We've talked about those causes, the prevention, the treatment.
Right.
But I think, the biggest takeaway for me is that we really do have the power to protect our oral health.
We do.
And knowledge is power.
It is.
So the more we understand about our teeth, the better equipped we are to, make those good decisions and take care of ourselves.
I agree completely.
So, you know what? If you find yourself with a chipped tooth, don't panic.
Don't panic.
But don't ignore it either.
Right.
Reach out to your dentist. Get it checked out.
That's the best advice.
And take charge of your oral health.
Absolutely.
That's a wrap on our chipped tooth deep dive.
That's a good one.
We hope you found this journey informative and maybe even a little bit empowering. Stay curious. Keep exploring, and we'll catch you next time for another fascinating deep dive into the world around us.